right? So this one's for Paul Capili. He's a full stack developer and DevOps engineer for United Disability. And so they focus on delivering products and services with AI, social media, and technology. So this will be on Claude.ai. I'll hand it over to Paul now.
All right, so I want to tell you guys, I get nervous every time I do this. This is my 3rd year, and I get excited to be in front of everybody, to be able to tell experiences and outside of the premise of what I normally do. So I'm currently active duty, and however, I've had civilian sector jobs for the past 4 years, and I've transitioned into the different things that I've done, and I just want to make sure I could provide that information. But I want to do this talk a little different. So as we've been fortunate as part of the military to visit TechNet, which is an enormous amount of vendors, and we know for a fact that they can provide products and services to what our problem sets are. However, sometimes it can be very tricky, I would say. And what I mean by tricky is we identify our problem sets and we say, okay, we're looking for a specific technology, product, and service. However, that's not always the case, because then you have innovative companies that I want to present to you in a little bit, which 2 out of 4 in front of you right now are able to identify not only the current gaps you have, but also provide efficiency, innovation, and to be able to build resources within your ecosystem. So with that being said, I just want to let you guys know, these are the vendors that I've spoken to, and especially these are the people, the teams, and the products and services I personally utilize or witnessed, and I want to make sure that they're given the proper credit. I want to start with HashiCorp. I'm a fanboy for Terraform, but Jen, I want you, the floor is yours.
Everybody. My name is Jen Calva. I'm the sales director here at HashiCorp. Pleasure to be here. I'm glad you love Terraform. We do too. But we do a lot of work in the Indo-PACOM AOR. Specifically, everything we do is around automation and security. So Paul spoke about Terraform. People love that. It was downloaded, I think, from the AWS provider 3 billion times this last year, so it's very popular. I would say another tool that I think you guys should check out is Vault. We do a lot with secrets management, and it's FIPS 140-2 certified. Dash 3 is out now, but that's on the roadmap. But yeah, so we're here. We're at booth 1245, so come visit us.
There also, by the way, I just talked to John like 45 minutes of how much I love the efficiency of Terraform and trying to instantiate resources on your cloud ecosystem. But now we have Aqua. I spoke with Phil Pearson. He's one of the field CISOs for the company, and he provided me some of the nuances to be able to address containerization and instantiate it in a more secure way, which is of course utilizing their tool sets. Now, another company I want to introduce is Dragos. I have to say I've been following Rob Lee, which is the CEO for Dragos, for years now. He's actually a former captain of the Air Force, so aim high, right? But also, I've seen his delivery in the courses that he taught, but also the national strategic efforts that he wants to do for the country. So with that being said, I have Chris and Brad here. Go ahead. I'm a fanboy for these people, so take the floor.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Manrique. I'm a principal technical account manager for the Dragos team, for the Dragos public sector. So essentially, I handle post-sales at the most amount of time that we do a past deployment. Currently, right now, we actually just happened to stop by Pearl Harbor, who just installed our equipment for their NAVFAC FRCS facilities. Essentially, what we're going to be doing is going to be monitoring everything when it comes to your built-in automation systems, your water, wastewater, electrical SCADA, and those mountain lines. What makes really Dragos different is really the people that we, not only the technology, but the people that are involved with it. We bring along a lot of the expertise to help not really sell our equipment to the DoD, but really educate on the actual risk, right? So I'm a retired Air Force cyber warfare operator and planner. I actually came here to Pacific Century back in 2019. And one of the things obviously that we are targeting is our adversaries' infrastructure. There's no real reason for us to believe that our adversaries aren't doing the same to us. So what we're trying to do is to try to prevent those actions, or our adversaries taking the same actions and affecting our mission capability and our mission effectiveness. So we've been working throughout the DoD. We're highly deployed within the Navy. We're highly deployed in the U.S. Marine Corps. We need to start working on the Air Force, Space Force, and Army just needs to get out of their own way to help move along everything. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Happy to answer any questions if you guys may have.
All right, thanks for that, Chris. And I just want to say that if anybody that's have oversight of OT and ICS environments, it's very important to take that into consideration because I've seen the gaps myself. So I advocate these Dragos in terms of that, in that space. Now, Vectra does a lot of anomaly detection, which is essentially your data put together and it finds what's the outliers when the data is collected together. And then we have Denodo. I'm gonna speak this one, I like walking around. So when it comes to Denodo, essentially we have like a problem set in our organization where we're being told we have to have a data-driven type of approach. Essentially is utilizing data through visualization and trying to understand what decisions we can make, right? So Denodo provides that data virtualization to where different sources that are coming in to their platform, and they will unify that format and make it available to us so that we can create those beautiful dashboards or whatever things you want to present to your users to make data-driven decisions. So these are for me, we're here at TechNet, we meet a lot of vendors, but I would highly recommend consider talking to these guys. I'm not a paid person of advocating these people, I'm just a spectator and user of their technology. So now, let's go to what I like to start with my introduction. You know, I say that I've been a civilian sector for the last 4 years, and I want to play a little game. So, I'm going to point at each and every logo and tell me what it is. Are you guys ready? Big smiles. Okay, let's start. Okay, start for the left corner. Python, perfect. Next. Terraform. Of course, Terraform, ladies and gentlemen. Next, DigitalOcean. So essentially for me, I migrated some instances from DigitalOcean to a WordPress hosting platform called WP Engine. And for those who are developers for WordPress, there's a huge war with WordPress Automatic and WP Engine. It's about open source and what contributions they make. And some people or some organizations try to take advantage of these open source technology so that they can profit from it. So you'll see this in some of the banter between CEO Automatic and WP Engine. Next. GCP. Linux. Any preferred Linux flavor? Anybody? Kali. Perfect. Security guy right here. And then next. Docker container. So this is what I talk about in terms of, I have a passion for Docker containerization. And for those who want to be more educated with containerization and how it works, I will not speak of it, but I will tell you it's been one of the best technologies I've worked with in terms of trying to build applications, but also instantiating testing in terms of, okay, if I want this to become a reality, I have containers that I can utilize at a minimized level. And there are documentaries out there, which is, I want to go to the next one. What is this here? Kubernetes, ladies and gentlemen. So, one of the things I'm very proud of, I love technical certifications. So, I am a certified Kubernetes administrator. 20 questions, you have to know your stuff because it actually goes to the terminal and you have to be able to create a lot of stuff off of Kubernetes. Now, when I talk about Kubernetes, this is where John and his team come in terms of Terraform, because it makes it easier for me to just take one or two resources and I have a GKE cluster on Google Cloud. It doesn't take much. But imagine, for those who know Kubernetes, you have no idea sometimes the nightmare that it comes when you have to configure this stuff. So WSL, I know it's a giveaway, but I'm more of a Linux person, so I instantiate WSL on my Windows box. And I try to utilize that if I don't have any Linux ready available to me. Anybody knows this on the bottom corner? WordPress and WP Engine, so those two. Thank you, sir. Are you a developer, by the way? No. Okay, all right. So WordPress and WP Engine are platforms that we utilize at United Disabilities. And essentially what I did was I migrated that platform that came from DigitalOcean to WP Engine on the bottom there. So that's the new hosting service that we have right now. But we're going to get rid of that WordPress site altogether because we're going to make a more awesome application, which can be written in Next.js and be hosted on Vercel. Now, next. PowerShell. I love PowerShell. I've been using PowerShell for quite a bit. I would say 10 years. And then, anybody knows this? I knew it. I got you guys. This is Flutter. So Flutter is my primary development toolset. And I do develop a lot of mobile applications for the company I work for. So it's cross-platform. So it's like React Native. It's essentially you have one code base. You don't have to write it in iOS. You don't even have to write it in Android. So it's cross-platform. But of course, there's nuances behind it. And what I love about Flutter is it's a declarative approach. It's easy to use, and the list goes on. And then lastly, Next.js. So our upcoming site's going to release in 2 weeks. It's going to be written in Next.js. So those are the technologies that I use as my introduction to y'all. Now, I want to start this conversation by playing a game. So if you guys don't mind, I have a QR code which makes it pretty obvious that you can bring out your phones and just scan it. All I ask, just scan it's going to be very hard, I promise.
Yeah.
If you do, your QR code is only going to be, you're going to have a number presented in front of you. Just QR code, I swear, this is not, it's going to be harmless and we're going to have some fun. And I'll tell you why we're doing this. So the game essentially goes like this. So the QR code, as you can see, would present you a number. Every time you refresh, it will change a different number. The issue is I don't have a database backend to account for duplicate numbers. So, sir, you might have 30, he might have 30, or you might have 21, somebody might have 19, or the same numbers. I can't account for that. I was a little bit lazy to be able to create this game. However, I'll tell you this. This game is going to look like this. So let me see if I can pull this off. Alrighty, so this game was built off of Claude.ai. So I'm telling you, the talk right now is in regards with speeding up the process of building your applications. And essentially what it gave me, an application that I could run and reveal the winner based upon your number. So there's two applications behind this. The QR code that gives you the number, but the other also you'll be able to determine that winner. Who has number 23? Anybody? Exactly. so that's the name of the game. Well, which is okay. If we don't have anybody, we'll just continue on. But I want you to understand that as you can see on the bottom, it's made with Claude. I will never claim that I built the application by myself. I'll only tell you that what efficiencies that I had to be able to come up with these applications. All right, so what we're going to do next is, all right, so it's going to be game time. So I'm going to try this. I'm hoping you guys have the number. If not, that's okay. But I'm going to pull two websites. one to there. To the other one. And there. Okay. And then the other is this one here. I think it's already properly there, but. Alrighty, so I never asked a question. Anybody has development experience? Anybody? Sir, you? You? Perfect. Okay, so because y'all have the development experience, we will start with you, sir. Can you tell me what differences you see on these two websites? If it's not that clear, I do apologize. Anything?
Some extra, well, actually, besides the character cards?
Yes.
Okay.
Some of the characters, right? So as a UI UX designer, if you're the one responsible of enabling these fonts, but also if you're the one designing the application, there's a difference between fonts, right? Sir, do you have any differences? The animation. See? So if you have a keen eye in terms of development on the front end of things, you'll be able to say that there's a difference in animation. Why is I asked the question, there might be a difference between the two, right? So in front-end development, there are things you consider from the font sizes to the links that you embed, from the buttons and colors that you implement into your application. So with that being said, so we have these two websites, and why do I present to y'all these two websites simultaneously? But they're quite similar in a way, right? There's so many features, the background, the buttons, and all these stuff are quite similar. And as you can see as well, they're both made with Claude.ai. Now, when it comes to this application, essentially what we're doing here is, so these are the two links, right? And not only they're different in the design, but they're also different in their code bases. So as you can see on the left, quite different from the right. Anybody can tell me what's the difference between the two? Two different languages, right? So there are two different languages. You got one which is HTML on the right, and you got React on the left. And I will show you that. There you go. So you have a framework, a web application framework, that allows you to develop applications faster through React. Now, for those who are aspiring developers, or for those who have been developing for a while, I would highly recommend go to YouTube and watch the documentary on how React came into inception. And this was a technology that was developed by Facebook, or now they're called Meta. So you would be fascinated what the engineering goes behind, what the engineering decisions, and what problems that they were trying to solve at that time. And from what I understand, I'll give you a little caveat on what they were trying to solve, was essentially, I think there was part of the Facebook application that they needed to make it go faster. But I don't want to misinform you, so if you have time, go to YouTube and watch the documentary on React. Now, when we talk about this, there's supposed to be somewhat differences, right? So when we speak of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, this is essentially telling me that, okay, this is the holy trinity of front end. So React wouldn't be React without these. So think about HTML as your skeleton. So you put your elements, you come up with a structure, and it actually is rendered on your web page. However, skeleton would be a body without its color. So what's the color? It is the skin itself, which is your CSS. So you have your skeleton, which is your HTML, and then you have your CSS, which is that provides that color to that skeleton. Now, when we mentioned about the animation and the differences between the two, we enabled that animation through JavaScript. This is the brains of your application. So essentially, if I'm developing an application, I want to have buttonology, I want to be able to jump from one page to the next, I can use JavaScript. This provides the functionality. Your skeleton and the body would just be one still thing that's standing up, but if you don't apply JavaScript, you basically don't have really a page. You have a static page that doesn't do anything, right? Any questions so far from this interview? Fantastic. All right. So I will try to humiliate myself, and we're going to do a game time. But before that, let's see if I can pull my game board. Okay, I'm gonna try this twice. I'm hoping I get somebody. This goes from 1 to 30. All right, 26. 26, am I lucky?
Yeah.
You got 26? Okay, then come on down. All right. So we're gonna do this trickiness, and I want to prove that we'll be able to develop an application using Claude.ai. Come on. Caleb. All right. So what we're going to do now, Caleb, is we're going to pull this up, and we're going to do some typing. All right. You saved my life. All right. Cool. All right. So before we begin, this is my current. So this is a paid subscription. It's a paid subscription for Claude, and it's extremely helpful. All right. So Claude is asking, how can it help you today? Right? How can it help you? All right. So what we learned so far, we got HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Caleb, Noah, how about we do this? Let's say create a web page written in HTML. Yeah, go ahead. See the beautiful lines of code that is popping up your screen, and it builds it for you. Welcome to my site. We have 4 endpoints and all that, right? So Noah, we're looking at this page, and I'm saying to myself, how can my people see this, right? I have these different web pages that are presented to y'all, but how can you be able to see it? We have the button called Publish. This essentially will allow you to have this web application accessible on the internet. Let's go ahead and publish this, Noah. Fantastic. All right, go ahead and publish and copy the link. Link is copied. Now open it up. Perfect. Then you have to paste it into the bar so that we show it's actually published. Yes, it's a little tricky. Oh, I see that. Yeah. So guys, I have Ubuntu on my Mac, so it's a little tricky. Let me try this. All right. So right now we have. Yeah, it's a little tricky when you have a different operating system on a Mac. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go back to that application, right? And then we're going to go here. Now we're going to post the site that Caleb just created, which is right here. You copy that link, and then you paste it here. And now, this is a site that he has. Plain and simple, right? So we asked Claude that, hey, create us an HTML site, and now you have a web page. However, there's a caveat to this process. Let me tell you why. Now, you can help me with doing this, okay? All right. So what we're going to do here, we're going to go back to that chat place. I got too many tabs here, right? So, okay, in Claude essentially, I'll go ahead and put on the hood. So in Claude here, not only we see the actual rendered page, but we also see the code base. So if you scroll up, right? Okay, let me ask you a question, Noah. Any answer is acceptable. Is this purely HTML? Oh, well, I thought he was going to say yes. Yeah. Okay, so yes, he's correct. It is not purely HTML. Why? Is because you see this application, These tags here are your HTML, which is your skeleton. I essentially tell you that this is the structure of your web application. Now, to put some color, fonts, and everything else to your application, if you want to scroll down further, stop here. So this is your CSS. My CSS telling me my background is this, I have a color white, my text line is to the center, and all these other things, right? And then now, the last part would probably, hopefully have JavaScript. Can you scroll down? No? Okay, so let's scroll up a little bit. You probably have a script tag. Oh. Okay, all right. So, this doesn't have a JavaScript from what I'm seeing right now. That's an API call. That's just a placeholder. So, by the way, anybody from security? May I ask? Security, I know these guys here, right? So, when we talk about security, it's very important to consider when Claude develops these applications. Anybody know what APIs are? APIs? Great hotness in terms of how to connect different resources across the web. Essentially, it will not accept you placing specific API calls if an API does exist. And if you want a remote image, you can do that through this tag, right? So we have HTML, we have CSS, we don't have JavaScript. Now, you want to thank you very much? All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull this page and just show you when you're doing this type of application, it's not necessarily that you have to highly depend on the application that's helping you, right? You have to have at least prerequisite knowledge. Let me explain. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to download this application. I have that on my, so it's sample.html, right? So let's do this. All right. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to my terminal and pull it up. Actually, I got to pull it up. So right here, here's my terminal, okay? So we downloaded that page. So when we download that page, essentially now we do have the website that we actually just posted on Claude.ai. So what we're going to do now is we're going to open this at Visual Studio Code. So you can do this by your code, and then we do download, and then we're going to do sample.html. Hopefully it pulls up there. All right, so here is the code base. So now we have this code base on our own, we have it on our local instance, and we have the ability to make changes if you want to host it on. Now keep in mind, the changes that you make is only onto you. But if you want to enable your changes, you have to talk to Claude and make those changes appropriately. So in this case, we have, this is your HTML right over here. Let's see if I want to make the change. This is my awesome web page, right? And then you go down here, this is your color. We can change this color. What I like about Visual Studio Code, it actually makes you change that color a lot easier. Oh, I don't have the plugin. So now I can change the color maybe to red, right? And then now, to make this a little quicker, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our, CTF stuff. Go here, we're going to downloads. And then here, I'm going to open it. So essentially, when I do open, it now renders the page locally. So there's a difference. The difference now is this is actually running on my system. It's not hosted on Claude. So there's a difference. So if somebody had to access URL, which is on top, which has a file protocol, nobody will be able to access that. I've been doing too much of the talking. Any questions so far? Yes, sir.
Is there any limit to the prompt size for Claude?
Great question. Is there a limit to the prompt size? Yes, there is. I don't know what it is, but at some point, it will hit a limit. So when you're talking to the chatbot, and it will tell you, you're hitting your limit, you might want to create a new chat. So there is a limit. You have any question?
Yeah.
So when we talk about prompts, just to clarify, this is actually the inputs that you're putting in your chat application. So I want to say, creating a website that has a React framework, then that's your prompt. Sir, what's your question?
What is the what is the licensing cost?
Oh, right now it's $25, if I'm not mistaken, for the professional plan. Yes.
Can you redirect to another URL?
So, okay, the question is, can you redirect to URL? Do you mean
Like the site, can you publish to another URL?
Oh, so I would say yes, because it's already externally available, and all I have to do maybe get a DNS provider, right, and point it to Claude URL. So you're saying, if I have, actually let's clarify that a little bit for those who are listening. So if you have this one here, this Claude.site, artifacts, whatever, to his point, nobody's going to remember that site. So what I can do, I have a DNS provider that would say, let's go to www.pcapisawesome.com, and it will redirect here. That's essentially what we're trying to do. Because it's not a human readable type of URL. Great questions. All right, now, when we go back to our slide here, I'm glad I have 2 mics. Thanks so much. All right, so right now, I didn't realize it's a little tricky when you have Ubuntu. The keyboard just changed drastically different. This is a Mac. This is Ubuntu and Mac. I'm just going to pull another Google instance. I think I lost my slide there. Apologize, guys. It's a little tricky. My primary screen is actually the big screen here. All right, so do this. So I'm going to go back to my application over here. So we talked about HTML, CSS, and that's your demo. But now we're going to go into React, right? So React, so there are different nuances when it comes to React. And especially remember when I mentioned that your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are the fundamentals of the web, but React makes it easier for you to do it. So for example, if I'm developing an application and I want to be able to use different buttons within the different pages of my application, I can use Lego blocks. React is essentially component-based. So sir, if he has a web page, e-commerce web page, and I have a shopping cart that displays on the very top corner of my website, and I want that same information on the next page, I can use the same component. And then next, declarative. So it's like a recipe. I like to say, like Terraform and Kubernetes, when you're trying to build pods on your Kubernetes cluster, they're all declarative in nature. What does that mean? The declarativity of your approach to application building is essentially telling it, this is what I want. I want a pie. You're giving to and essentially all that building is up to the baker. So I tell the baker, I want a pie, and maybe a pseudocode would say, I want a pie which has a cherry flavor with this size. That's declarative. But the opposite end is like imperative, where you're actually providing the steps how to build that pie. Step number 1, I need to create dough. Sorry, I'm not a cook person, but that's the difference when it comes to declarative in terms of letting you know this is the expected outcome that I want from my application. Next is JSX. So JSX essentially is speaking hybrid language, which means is that it's a combination of JavaScript and HTML combined. So I'm essentially creating functions that I can embed HTML into it. So it makes it easier for you to write functions, easier for you to write components within React. And of course, you need data flow. So for those if you're developers and you become a developer, one of the 2 roadblocks that I have is you need directional data flow and state management, which essentially tries to tell you that when you have an application, you have this data that you need to propagate across your application, right? So if I have my profile in one page, I need my profile on another page, and I need my profile on another page to be able to say, hey, I'm pretty logged in. Let's see. Let's give that hypothesis, right? So based upon the application that you're building, because you're authorized and it's your own account, you have a state management or wardrobe that you're wearing at that time to be able to identify at that moment. So if I'm a user for this application and I'm only a consumer, there should be proper authorization and authentication functions, methods that are implemented so that they can assure the right users accessing the right parts of the application. And then when we talk about unidirectional data flow, if I have, let's say, a cart, right, going back to my e-commerce example, I go all the way down to the application and I tell myself, you know what? I have this list, I have a shopping list of of orders that I made, and I want to make sure that I'll be able to check it out, right? So there might be times where you might change your order, right? If you're going to change your order, then you want to propagate that information that comes from the parent component of your application going down to maybe a child component that needs the same information. I know these are all abstractions, but I want you to keep in mind that don't take these face value, but I want you to have this a takeaway where this was an improvement from your normal HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to have a framework to make it easier for us as developers to build applications at faster speeds. So now, all right, let's try this again. Hope I'll get lucky this time. So it's game time. All right, guys. So let's try this again. I'll give it like 2 times to see if somebody actually, if I hit the number. Oh, there's my mistake. Okay. All right, let's try this twice. I'll try my luck and see what happens. All right. Number 3. No one? No one? Okay. And one more time. 2. Oh man. Okay, that's fine. So I'm hoping we'll continue on with what we're talking about here. And I just want to let you know that this application that I built was from Claude, as you can see. This is just part of the application, and there was another site that y'all have in your QR code that you scan that will just give you a random number. So that means there's 2 applications within this game, right? So you have one that was built upon to this, but you have another QR code that would say, hey, this is what number I'm giving to you. So, go back to my server there. So what we're going to do now is, we're going to do a quick demo, okay? Just very quick. I'm going to try to do this, okay? So, essentially for those people that said, when I asked the question, what is a logo? What is this logo? And you guys had no idea which is Flutter, that little cute bird, I think. It's kind of like a bird. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a Flutter application, right? So let's create a Flutter app. All right. So now, what does Claude do? It builds it for you. See that line of code? It creates a drawer. It creates a list of things, buttons, navigation, and it's creating a stateless widget, which is immutable. And that's quite long of an application. All right. So when you're building these applications, it's very important to understand that you have one side which tells you, hey, this is the code base I'm going to use, but also Claude gives you like the descriptions of what these are, right? You have a navigation, you have UI components, you have a structure, and this is how you run the app, and that's important. The important part is the fact that you have to run the app. So essentially, Claude doesn't run it for you. You saw when we tried to run an HTML, CSS, JavaScript application, it has the right runtime to be able to run that application. Unfortunately for Flutter and any other frameworks, it will not run. It's not available just yet. Hopefully it will, right? So that's the caveat. But also, it gives you the instructions on your local instance. This is how I'm going to run the application, right? So it gives you that instruction. All right. So as we move on, skip that game time. All right. So when we talk about Claude, now this is where the bread and butter comes in. I always claim when I talk about these type of technologies, I'm only an end user. I will never tell you that if I say the word AI at this point, I consider it as a cuss word. The reason why I say this is because I will never claim that I know much of the technology. I have to do a lot of reading, I have to understand the abstraction, and see how that flows from the end user to the output. And this is what Claude is. It's a large language model that you provide an input, and it goes into their big model and trained with all the data that you need to be able to produce that output for you. But I'm a huge proponent of Claude. Our company, as a matter of fact, utilizes multiple AI type applications. We use ChatGPT, we use Claude, we use others, but not the APIs themselves. We're just end users of these. We're eventually going to venture into creating these APIs, creating the API calls to these platforms. So how it typically works, just a quick rundown. So they have this massive data that's trained, the LLM itself, which is Claude, and then now this is out where we come in. He said user query and prompts. It goes down to all the context understanding, kind of matching, and what the next word is going to be, and then now it creates that output. That's all it is. I want to keep it simple, right? So this flow chart is available in terms of how would that work at a high level. And it's color-coded just to distinguish the levels and the process and how it works. So after all this talk, and I know you guys, probably this is not a high interest in your bucket list in terms of the presentation of application development using chatbots, but I want you to understand that we're at the mercy of technology. And unfortunately, it's never going to slow down. So what we need to do is to be able to be huge adopters. And why do I say you need a prerequisite knowledge? Is because if I'm developing an application and I see this code base and I have no clue what's going on, I can't do like separation of concern, which is software design pattern. I don't understand if I'm calling a JavaScript application, which is apparently a CDN, right? Is remotely called, right? So what I'm trying to say is that chatbot is only assisting you to build the application faster. You still need that prerequisite knowledge. Also, it's because how we move from a technological perspective is very important to be great end users. And I say this with all intention. And the reason why is because we have the people that are paid to do the innovation, big tech companies to be able to create these wondrous technologies for us. But what we do is to be able to strengthen our knowledge to be able to be the best end users possible of these technologies. And then, like I mentioned, you can be at the mercy of this technology but have skepticism. I always try to question why you're telling me this, why you're telling me that. I want to understand further what do you mean by saying, okay, this is going to provide me this service, this can provide me this product, or are we just going to take it in? Have that skepticism. Also, when it comes to front-end development, I didn't know this prerequisite. I've worked for a furniture company. We've developed an application where it would go through a conveyor. It's written in JavaScript, C#, and as a backend. And essentially, those parts would go through, and it would account for all parts possible as it's being built. Now, keep in mind, there's always something new. I recommend to follow people like Farship and Primagen. They are YouTubers that you will learn something from. So it's good to keep up the technology. Farship actually has a comical approach to it too. It's actually pretty fun. And lastly, I am a fortunate person to be part of if Dragos pushes their innovation to the OT IT space, to the OT, ICS space. I'll be fortunate enough to be part of where Terraform is going to lead the infrastructure as code forever. Or I'll be at the mercy of cloud agnostic or cloud specific applications where I be able to speed up my development process and to be able to provide products and services on behalf of my company. Therefore, use those tool sets to innovate. They've already innovated most of the stuff for you. Why we don't recreate the wheel, but rather than use those as an end user to be able to innovate more. Now, with that being said, this is going to be my last time talking in front of everybody. I'm about to retire, so I will push the button next month. And it's sad to say that this was my last TechNet, and I've been fortunate to be speaking in front of intelligent, very passionate people about security and all sorts of things. And with that being said, I'm very gracious. Thank you so much. Have a great day.